I'm Wattice Gathings, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to Sisters Talking. Each month, Sisters Talking will bring a cross-generational group of Black women together, creating a safe and brave space for honest and vulnerable discussion about the challenges and opportunities and the fears and strength of being Black women. The goal of Sisters Talking is to amplify and explore the lived experience of Black women, the pain, the joy, success, failure, and the resulting pathways for growth and self-discovery. Over the past several months, an incredible group of Black women have joined me on this film journey of conversation and community, self-awareness, and self-actualization. DeAndre Anderson, Chief Operating Officer. Dee Atkins, Chief of Community Engagement. Mary Morton, CEO. Victoria Rudd, Senior Community Affairs Manager. Ariel Johnson, Entrepreneur. And nonprofit executive Nidra Sims-Fears. And joining us at the table this month is a special guest, noted clinical psychologist and author, Dr. Inger Burnett Ziegler. Sisters, let's continue the journey together right now. Hello, ladies.
Hello.
I'm Curtis Tarvin, inviting you to tune into the next Brothers Talking, where the brothers and I talk about colorism, texturism, and the proximity to whiteness.
Just because I'm using standard, proper English, I'm perceived as white, I don't accept that.
Join the conversation Tuesday at 7 p.m. on CAN-TV, cable channel 19, or stream online at cantv.org or on the CAN-TV Plus app. Elevated conversation and storytelling. Experience the power of community television.
They say television is about sitting back. We say it's about stepping up. Your block has stories worth telling. Your neighbors have voices worth hearing. Chicago has a heartbeat worth sharing. Stop watching their world. Start showing yours. It's time to tune in and be seen. CAN TV, always here, always yours. Experience the power of community television.
Sisters, it's so good to see you all. Before we dive into this month's topic, let's do our quick temperature check since it's been a while since we've seen each other. Dee, let's start with you. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Very happy for the holiday season. I don't know about you all, but the leaves have fallen and now it's time to put up the lights and start the celebration. Most looking forward to Thanksgiving.
That's awesome. Ariel?
I'm recharging. I'm glad to be here. My team's just wrapped up 3 weeks of major events, and so I'm excited to now just kind of recharge and connect with family.
Tori?
I feel the same. I echo your sentiments. I am excited for the holiday season, putting up some lights, going Christmas shopping, making a list for myself, but yeah, we're good.
Have to.
Some list.
Dee?
I am pushing through today. I had a very busy day, and I'm excited about this conversation because today is one of those days that I want to talk about it.
Awesome. Hopefully we can give you some medicine around the table. Nidra?
This is a really good day. Similar, it's been a very busy 6 weeks, and so things are trending down, and just looking forward to having good time with family.
Awesome. Miss Mary?
I would say very much the same thing. I'm looking forward to the holidays and winding down. We closed the office for 2 weeks, and I am looking forward to it.
Wow.
Yeah.
We have a friend with us today. Dr. Inger, how are you?
I'm doing well. It has been a busy last couple of months for me as well, and so I'm thinking about intentionally slowing down. The holidays is my favorite time of year, so I'm looking forward to spending time with my little one and family and doing all of the Christmas things, so I'm excited for the rest of the year.
That's awesome. I feel like I love the vibe of the holiday, but I really love the hibernation that the winter brings. Like just being home, having a slower pace. While I miss the sunlight, I do really like being home earlier at night because it seems like it's just so late, but it's really not. So, all right, we'll dive right into this month's topic and let's unpack it. This month, we're centering a conversation that far too often happens in whispers, if it even happens at all. Black women's mental health and the power of emotional literacy. Across the country, Black women are carrying a staggering load at work, at home, in their communities, and the data backs up what many already feel in their bodies. Recent research shows that Black women are at a higher risk for depression and anxiety than Black men, and are at least twice as likely to experience an episode of major depression. Yet Black women are only about half as likely as white women to seek help for depression, and just a small fraction of Black adults with a mental health condition actually receive treatment. And even when they do reach out, the system doesn't always reach back. Nearly half of Black adults who try to get mental care say they struggle to find a provider who understands their background and experiences. Add to that the cultural expectations to be strong, the stigma around asking for help, and the very real fear of being misunderstood or judged, and you have a recipe for silent suffering. At the same time, there's growing evidence that building emotional literacy, the ability to recognize, name, and work with our feelings can be a powerful protective factor. Studies show that people with strong emotional skills experience less psychological distress, cope better with stress, and bounce back more quickly from emotional setbacks. In other words, learning the language of our emotions isn't soft work, it's survival work, and it's a pathway to healing. Sisters, let's dive in and talk about it. All right, let's just unpack this. Where did we learn being strong is what we needed to do to survive in the world? Where did that come from?
My
Mary?
mother. I mean, that's what I saw her do, and that's what was expected of me. And so I absolutely saw that growing up. My mother worked, she was going to college at the same time, she was an activist in the community, did all the things.
Wow. Any other ladies?
So the Cliff Notes version of Black history, we're gonna start with slavery, right? And we're talking about women who still had to nurture children, still had to show up for the people in their community, but they were enslaved. And then we look at the Jim Crow era, and Black women are literally the foundation of the civil rights movement, and they're forced to still show up and to smile, but then still be the homemakers. There's really no space and opportunity for them to feel. Then we look at the mass incarceration of Black men, and now we have to be the primary homemakers and the providers and pushing through society and not able to climb a career ladder. There is no space to take care of your mental. And so our mothers had that ingrained in them historically, and they never had a choice to feel, whether they were being raped or whether they were being forced to do work that they weren't being paid for, whether literally or figuratively. So I know that was probably a deep response, but there's never really been an opportunity for us to feel and to take care of our mental health.
Wow. And I think this is a very heavy topic, and I'm super grateful that we have a doctor among us today. Dr. Inger, thank you so much for being with us. So when you think about this conversation, I think that it's clear that this is a learned behavior that we've gotten from oftentimes modeled women that we respect in our lives out of survival and out of them doing what they have to do. But when we think about the toll that this takes on women, what does this cost us, and what are some of the long-term consequences?
Yeah, when we avoid or deny our feelings, that doesn't make the feelings go away.
Sure.
It just allows opportunity for them to grow and opportunity for that suffering to fester internally. And I think that's something that's especially important for us as Black women to recognize, is that when we don't attend to our emotional needs, it has an impact not only on our mental health, but also on our physical health. In terms of our mental health, what may start as the seeds of stress, as the seeds of just carrying a heavy load, having to be that provider and caretaker, having to do it all, push through and survive, can then turn into depression, can then turn into anxiety. In some instances, can turn into post-traumatic stress. And all of those mental health conditions also have physical manifestations, are related to hypertension, which we know is disproportionately prevalent in the Black community, related to excess weight gain, related to diabetes, and all of these things that we also see among Black women. And so, you know, I just think drawing that connection is so important, because a lot of folks think we can push aside our mental health needs as long as we're feeling all right, but those mental health needs are really playing a role in how we show up physically as well.
Wow. Well, that's super interesting. And you talked about kind of the toll it takes on your body and the connectedness to physical illnesses. But what do we do as women in response to like how do we combat some of these things? We know it's existing. We know we can't stop. Someone, I was in conversation with someone a couple days ago, and they talked about feeling like they were functionally depressed, meaning they were doing all the things they needed to do throughout the day, but they weren't experiencing joy, and they were doing it tired. And I don't know about you guys, but going through a day tired is exhausting within itself. But what do we do to combat this when we start to recognize it within ourselves and within our community?
I think we have to retool our toolkit. Previously, we learned to push through as part of a survival mechanism, but the environment has changed, and we have to change the tools suitable for the environment today. So we may still be suffering from those same things that you mentioned, with men being incarcerated and being single mothers and trying to have careers, but how we navigate through is what we have to change. We can't just push through anymore. We have to rebuild our toolkit for the things that will work today.
Interesting.
I think we also need to slow down and pay attention. I think we're so used to kind of running on autopilot and attending to everything that's around us instead of attending to ourselves. And so, a part of that process of retooling the toolkit and healing and going forward in a healthier way is taking that pause, taking that beat to ask ourselves, how are we feeling in this moment? How is the stress or suffering showing up in our minds and our spirits and our body in this moment? And that awareness gives us the opportunity to make different choices in how we move through the world.
Wow.
I feel that we also, a part of the toolkit is having boundaries. What's good for me, my family, my work, and making sure that there's some balance, and so things don't get so overwhelming. And I find boundaries to be very, very important, to set them, to be very clear about it, so that people know what you need, and also people can give you what I need.
Yeah. When it comes to breaking the silence, I think one of the biggest struggles is not always having the language to ask for help. I remember being a little girl, and my mom was always, joking and fun, but there would be times where if she was pressed for time, or if we weren't listening as kids, or if we were late getting out of the house, she was gonna be in a much different of a personality. And oftentimes, she didn't say to us like, hey, we're really in a rush today, I need you guys to stop goofing off and hurry up. It would just come out in a different way because she was under a great deal of stress to make sure she got us all to where we needed to be in the traffic and all those things. But what is that language that we need in order to ask for help, and why are we so hesitant to ask other people for help?
Watisa, I think it might have to do with you talked about emotional literacy, but emotional maturity too. Because if I think about my younger self meaning maybe 25 years ago, and the things that I was going through, I didn't really have the language to understand that the pain that I felt after a medical prognosis sent me into a dark place. I did not recognize it for what it was, which was depression. I just knew that I felt really, really bad, and I did not want to be around people, and I liked being in darkness and all of that. So I did not have my own language. Today I do. But that was through therapy. And so sometimes it just has to do with the way that you mature in your life, and how you go about seeking help and talking to people about what it is that you're feeling, and being able to not only recognize it, but name it and then work through it, which again brings about the level of maturity. And some of it may have to do with just age and just saying no more. I will not allow this to happen to me anymore. Yeah.
Wow. You mentioned emotional literacy, and for those who may be watching that don't know what that means, can we unpack? What does emotional literacy mean? How does that show up in our lives, and what relationships do we oftentimes have to leverage and use our emotional literacy?
I often refer to it as probably emotional regulation, actually, right? The ability to understand, to identify your feelings, but also to be able to understand and identify the folks around you as well, their feelings as well. Certainly happens a lot in the workplace. So for now, probably more than I've ever heard before, when we're doing executive searches, people are saying, what about their emotional regulation, their emotional intelligence as a leader, as a supervisor? Will they be able to understand their own feelings and monitor them and regulate them? And will they be able to do that for the folks that they're supervising? So understanding that you have these feelings, that we all do, but to your point, in many ways, managing expectations around them as well. Yeah.
You mentioned something, and given the work that you do, Mary, emotional regulation as it relates to the workplace and us as Black women. Sometimes we oftentimes find ourselves in a double bind where we're carrying a lot in the workplace and expected to perform, but we're also expected to perform in a manner that is, frankly, white adjacent to how white women perform in the workplace or present and show up. How does that weigh in on depression and how women show up every single day?
It's a lot of code switching.
Yeah, absolutely.
And consciously.
Yeah.
I think, once we do get to our mature mindset, then we have to stop and ask, what am I feeling? Why am I feeling this way? And we have to understand that the people that we may lash out at are actually not the cause of our trauma.
Sure.
And identifying that helps us, I think, reset and have better relations and show up as better leaders.
Yeah.
In some of the work that I've done, I've surveyed Black women on things that bring them stress, generally speaking. And a lot of the things that Black women have identified have to do with the workplace environment, feeling under the microscope, feeling like they're held to a different standard, like the bar keeps moving, a feeling of not belonging, feeling misunderstood, more heavily critiqued. And so some of those experiences that have to do with systemic racism, that have to do with the microaggressions and all of the things that can happen in an environment, particularly if you're in a predominantly white environment, can contribute to that stress, and then the depression, and then the anxiety that also impact how one performs and shows up at work.
Sure. It's interesting that you said that. So I'll be a little bit vulnerable. I turned 35 back in May. And my grandmother died of a massive heart attack when she was 35. And so for me, it was like, crap. Like, at what point am I going to die of a heart attack? And so one of my girlfriends, I was talking to her about it, and she said, you could either do something about it or you could worry yourself to death about it. And so I decided to do something about it. So I decided to go on this journey of self-care of Watis for a year. So I went out, I hired a trainer, I went out and I tried to find a therapist. And lo and behold, I still have not found a therapist, and I've been on the search since May, right? It's having conversations with people who are culturally aware. I've gone to the larger systems and looked for therapists and got match made, and none of those really worked out. And I've also gone to like smaller clinical practices, but the availability, the accessibility, and even down to the physical aspect of finding a primary healthcare physician I trust. I found a couple of Black clinicians, but I can't see them until June or July of next year. So how do we make sure we have the right care of support around us to make sure we're physically well? I think oftentimes we feel like this is something we have to figure out by ourselves, and the reality of it is most of the time we can't. We need people around us to support us. And so what does that look like? How do we go about the path of finding good healthcare providers to help us with these challenges?
I think you go for referrals, and a lot of it is just try it out. I don't think you have to stay with a PCP who, just because it's my first time seeing you, we're locked in.
Sure.
And the same with the mental health practitioner. Like, they have their own lives too, and some of the advice that they may offer may not apply to you at all. So I think it's also like, just kind of pick and choose as you go, and then create your village in that sense.
I love connecting with different national platforms. So I was just telling one of my mentees yesterday about blackgirltherapy.com, and I follow them on Instagram, and then I find other folks that are in their ecosystem and their information on social media. And it really, one, just helps you be intentional about having the conversation and getting comfortable about what to look for and what you're asking for when you're looking for your therapist. But also, they have a directory there as well. So using different resources like that has been really helpful for me, for sure.
Black Girl Therapy?
Black Girl Therapy.
Okay. Never heard of that. Wonderful.
What I'm feeling right now is, where were you all 25 years ago when I was going through my own experience? Because when I talk about emotional maturity, this is really real for me, because I chose, at that time he was 78, I chose a 78-year-old white man as my therapist because of my fear and trust and the stigma around getting medical health care and seeing a therapist. So I figured, okay, he's white, he's a man, He knows nothing about me, and he's older, so there is no way that he would know anyone in the city that he could tell any of my, secrets to. And so I decided to share, and he was my therapist right until he retired at 87. But I say that to say that because of the stigma, I probably could have used someone Black who understood me culturally, the trauma associated, my own lived experience. But because of the fear and the stigma and the trust issues that I was having, I selected otherwise. So it's really rewarding now. Now, my therapist today is a Black woman. But then I made a different choice because I felt like that was what I had to do. And also because no one really talked about getting therapy. How dare you even say that you don't feel your best? The thing that comes to mind for me is if I told my mom I'm depressed, you need to depress those dishes. Depress that room when you're done. Because what do you mean? Depressed about what as a younger person? So just having these conversations and knowing that there's a way to seek help in a different way, it just feels really good.
Oh, Dee, you bring up such a good point, and that really is around how weak we thought we were to be vulnerable enough to share with somebody that we needed help. And it was because we were always taught to be strong, to let things roll off, to paddle underwater and glide on top, that we didn't think it was okay to do that. And so 25 years ago, you and I both, we didn't talk about that. We just pushed through. But what we have since learned is that being vulnerable is being strong. If I can tell you what is wrong with me, then you might be able to help me to be better. But if I just hide it, then I will fall into a depression. I will not get the help that I need. And that, I think, is the narrative that we need to help change, and that being strong means you have to hide things is what we need to unlearn for our generation. And Tori can probably tell us how different it is for her today.
It certainly is different. I think that the majority of my friends are in therapy, and I think sometimes there's an extent where it's like, are you in there too much? Like, I've had some conversations.
You can't do nothing.
Yeah, I've had some conversations where, now granted, I have my master's degree in social work, so sometimes I will approach a conversation very okay, let me listen in. But some people are like, you're speaking to me like a therapist right now. I just need you as a friend. And that really strikes me because I think at times it makes me think, as we are all practicing therapy, are we utilizing this time as just a tell-all, or are we actually listening in and then taking what we're learning and applying it in a way that is not only suitable for ourselves, but palatable for someone else's ears? Like, are we just using these words because they sound good, or do we actually know what we're saying?
Sure.
So I think that as we are in therapy, we also have to be honest with ourselves and the work that we are willing to put in.
But I think that is where in conversation, you have to be very clear on what's the outcome. Am I just listening to you and you need a shoulder to cry on, or is this a pep talk to get back out? I mean, just tell me what it is, and then I will my behavior, I will modulate based on who you need me to be in the moment.
Yeah, and I think that that's something that's very interesting, right? Oftentimes I watch us as women reach out to our networks when we're trying to get that job, like, hey, do you know so-and-so that works over there? And you're willing to be vulnerable to saying, I've been trying to make my way in there, can you help me with a referral? But when it comes down to our mental well-being, to Tori's point, it's like you almost discuss it not in its most vulnerable and transparent form in order to seek advice, to receive it in order to do better, right? And I think that oftentimes happen in friendship, where therapy is a safe place, to Dee's point, where you can have that secrecy and sacredness. But when you're walking in close community with somebody, how do we develop or build the language where we can just reach out and say, I'm really working on X, or I'm really trying to overcome Y, and be genuine in that interaction for your friends to walk with you on that journey and keep you accountable to doing the self-care you need to do in order to take care of yourself going forward?
I think it's all about conversations. I use a book when I'm doing executive coaching called Fierce Conversations, and if you can't have a conversation with someone, you can't have a relationship with them. And so having a group of friends that you can say that to, that you can be vulnerable with, is really critical. And that's where it all starts. I mean, this idea of trying to find a therapist, I was, talking before we started this conversation and just saying I've been looking for a therapist for about a year. And it's because my therapist actually ghosted me. I know it's often the other way, but my therapist actually ghosted me and had some issues going on that she didn't say anything to me about so that I could make some other decisions. Instead, I was just sort of left. And I don't go to see someone every week. It's really when I need to see someone. But that person just disappeared for a while. And then they came back on the scene. And so I'm now looking for a new therapist.
Doctor, what are your thoughts? Like, how do we develop this language?
I think vulnerability breeds more vulnerability, and people hold things close because they're afraid of being judged, and they look around and see all of the other strong Black women around them that are keeping things close, and it looks like everybody else has things together. And so they feel like they're the only ones, and they feel like they're in isolation, and so in turn feel more uncomfortable about disclosing whatever might be causing pain and suffering. And so I think as we as a community become more comfortable with practicing sharing whatever that little thing is and seeing how someone else responds, I think that starts to open up that pathway. Well, if that person can share, then I can share as well. And that's something that can even be practiced in the workplace with the people that we're supervising or mentoring, because we know that they look up to us. And so when we can kind of share a bit of ourselves and open up that conversation, that invites others to do the same.
Sure. When we think about depression and, we talk about therapy naturally, and I've talked to a lot of people who are not ready for that journey yet. What are other things around wellness beyond traditional therapy that people need to instill in their daily lives? Whether that's movement of the body, whether that is, reading a book, going for a walk. What are those other self-care things that people should consider as they're establishing routines to make sure they're working through their daily depression?
Go outside. Go take a walk. I think especially as we're entering this winter dark hibernation phase, I think a lot of us are way more like, I'll just go to sleep, And it's like sometimes, no, you need to get some fresh air. Go step outside, touch some grass, and see what that does for your system.
Now, I'm not the doctor, and I'm the annoying person at our dinner table talking about what we eat. But definitely, I can almost see a correlation between what I'm putting in my body and how I'm feeling the next day. And that's also not a popular topic in our community, in the Black community. But we also self-medicate with the things that we eat, and we overeat. My family, many of the women in my family are emotional eaters. And so if you stop to pay attention to what you're putting in your body, how you start your day, are you eating something light? Are you drinking your water? Are you drinking tea? At the end of the day, are you slowing down your eating and just really paying attention to the sugars that you put in your body that turn into this energy that it's a whole thing, right? It's science. But if we pay more attention to that as well, I think that can help significantly. I noticed it with my child. They thought he was autistic when he was very young, and just changing his diet helped to regulate his attention and the way he managed his own emotions during his day. So I think that's a big way to also.
I think being in community is what human beings are intended to do. And so, regardless of if you're introvert or extrovert, when you are in community with people, that gives you strength. To me, it is the story of the Black church, of the Black community, of the neighborhoods, of the village. All of that, to me, helps us. It's when we stay in isolation that depression can really set in without us recognizing it.
So it's finding something that you really enjoy doing. Something that is going to maybe put you in community with other people, but it's something that brings you joy. You were talking about what do we do that brings us joy? And because I am always thinking, something that I do that I started as an adult about 10 years ago was tap dancing. I really have always loved it. I've watched it on TV. And so I thought, well, why not? And so I started taking tap dancing classes. And I can't think about anything else because I'm really bad. So I have to focus on what I'm doing. But it means I don't think about anything else. I don't think about work. I don't think about that deadline. I am just really having this wonderful time tap dancing.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
They say television is about sitting back. We say it's about stepping up. Your block has stories worth telling. Your neighbors have voices worth hearing. Chicago has a heartbeat worth sharing. Stop watching their world. Start showing yours. It's time to tune in and be seen. Can TV, always here, always yours. Experience the power of community television.
In times of political turmoil and economic uncertainty, telling the stories of our city and neighborhoods is more critical than ever. At Can TV, we do just that. But with shrinking budgets and pressure on independent media, the future of hyper-local news is at risk. Your generous financial support ensures that we can keep shining a light on what matters most, right here in the city of Big Shoulders. Visit cantv.org and donate today. The power of community television depends on you. You, me, we are Can TV.
Life happens to all of us, and you talk about tap dancing a little bit, but oftentimes when we watch our friends going through seasons in which life is really hard for them and they haven't reached out to you, and you don't want to overstep or misplace their trust by calling that out in them. But how do we want women to show up for us when we know that we're having an emotional time? I always struggle as a leader, as a woman, like where is the line between like me being there for a friend or me being overbearing, and how do we find that balance when we recognize it in our colleagues and our friends when we talk about this community that we're building amongst each other?
I feel like text messaging works as a barrier for me. Sometimes people don't want the phone call. They may not be ready to say the words out loud, but they may be ready to write them in text form. And so sometimes that is what's needed. That's sort of how I manage it, is a quick text. Hey, just checking in on you. Nothing long. I heard this, or I know this is going on, and then allow them to lean into that conversation to the extent that they want to, and then carry that message through in the direction that they're ready. And sometimes it may be, hey, can you call me? And then there's an opportunity to have a phone conversation. But sometimes for me, it's a text message. And I'll just also want to say that it's also refreshing to have just a circle of friends, mainly girlfriends, that you can be vulnerable with. Because a lot of times they may see you as the strong friend. There's this saying, check in on your strong friends. But then when Dee says, girl, listen, it's been rough, then it's like, oh, Dee, it's rough for me too. And it's like, so when were you going to say?
Sure.
It's I had to have the emotional break first before anyone else acknowledged that. Thank you so much for saying that. And I really like when that happens, because it gives us all this freedom to then just openly share and be vulnerable with one another. However, it's a shame that it has to be that way, that until one says it, the others will not. So I'm still trying to navigate that sometimes in circles, but I do realize that sometimes that happens, especially when you've got a strong friend and then the others are trying to be strong with the strong friend. Yeah.
I think I tend to step a little bit further, and I don't know if that's the therapist in me, but I really believe that people want to be seen, and they want other people to see and acknowledge our suffering without us having to say something. As a therapist, I would work with someone about how can you intentionally express your needs and express your suffering. As a friend or a family member, I try to work with people in my close circle about how can we gently open up a safe space for that conversation. I notice you haven't really been yourself lately. Is there something you want to talk about? A lot of question asking, inviting someone in, but not pushing too hard. Well, I'm here for you whenever you're ready, and then backing away. So kind of steps in and out, so that they know that you're there, that you're noticing, that you're a safe space. And it may not be the first, second, third, or fourth time, but maybe that fifth time they're ready to start talking.
Well, Tish, you're really good at that too. So I have to just thank you. I appreciate you. We've been to the gym together. We've taken lake walks together. My child been in your basement. And so if I get quiet, she asks questions. She's like, I know you're looking for this. Do you want to do this? What's going on? How can I show up for you? Sure. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
And that's the exact answer to the question that you were asking.
I'm so not politically correct in this regard.
Let us know what you do.
If I feel like if something's wrong and one of my friends, call me on it. Call me and say, what is happening with you? What is this? What is going on? I mean, there is a group of friends where we'll say, okay, FaceTime 20 minutes. And that means free yourself, do what you need to do. We need to get somebody's got something they need to get off their chest, and we just need to hammer it out. But I am not good at the how are you doing? What we doing? You know,
But describe your group of women. You've talked about these women before. I feel like this is like an OG.
This is a sisterhood.
Rooted from since back in the day kind of girls.
Kind of back in the day. But I will say it is a group of women where we have come together and without saying it, have agreed that there is nothing too vulnerable for us to share. And that we know we can leverage each other to navigate anything, and we have. I mean, they are responsible for a lot of things that have turned around in my life where I was too stubborn to see or moving too fast or whatever that is. And so it is nice to have people that will call me to the carpet and say, that's not even reasonable.
But that requires some emotional intelligence or
It
literacy
does.
to be able to be in those type of friendships. So
It does.
Dee's talking
And
about
maturity.
sisterhood,
Yes.
and something that some of us have really had the privilege of being a part of, and others have not been able to understand how to really flourish a healthy friendship because of the traumas and the challenges that they're dealing with.
You know, it's interesting, how we can be super long-suffering in romantic relationships, but won't put that same trust equity in a friendship, right? When you think about like your girlfriends, I oftentimes when I hear friends have gone through a tough season, my first question is like, why didn't you tell me?
Right.
And it always comes down to them not wanting to be a burden or not wanting to overstep, because they know as a friend group we tried our best to show up and do whatever we can to help. So how do you help your friends, and Dee, maybe you are the guru in this since you have a group of close friends in this way. How do you make people feel just comfortable knowing that you yourself are mature enough to take what you can own for them as a friend, but it won't be a burden because I'm going to coach you, but I'm going to leave it right there. Like we were in this together, but it's not mine to own. It's just a situation that's happening and you don't have to go through it by yourself.
Yeah, because if you call me to the carpet, I'm not a burden. You are saying, let's get this out. So the burden is when I call and say, oh my God, it happened again. And then I call the next week, oh my God, you won't believe it. Now I'm a burden because I'm repeating the same issue without taking any action to do anything any different. But if they call me to the carpet and say, that's not reasonable, what is going on? And now I have to level set with myself to be honest and have an honest conversation with them. That's not a burden. A burden is when you keep doing the same thing and want a different result and put it on somebody else, right? So I don't think it's a burden when they call me because we can talk for real about what's going on, what's causing this, how do we move past it or fix it or whatever we need to do with it. I don't believe that's a burden.
Yeah,
that's emotional maturity, though.
Exactly.
I think
seriously,
and it's honorable. I mean, to get the call while someone is struggling and be like, "Wow, you called me. You know I can be there for you." That's honorable to me. But I also think as we talk about checking in with friends, you have to be a friend first.
It's reciprocal.
I can't say like, hey, I noticed something. What if I didn't? I was never there to notice anything. And I think it's also a lot of accountability to say like, hey, I had not been there, but I want to be there. So what does that look like for you in this time period?
That's awesome. That's beautiful. So we've unpacked a whole lot, but I guess where I want to go next is thinking about like how do we overcome this, particularly for our younger generation. You mentioned your son, you mentioned if you could talk to your 25-year-old self. Like what are we doing amongst our young people? And I know parents these days get a lot of slack for being helicopter parents or overbearing with their children. But from what I'm seeing, I have a 13-year-old brother, and he called my phone the other day saying, can you help mom give me a mental health day? I'm like, what is that exactly? And why do you need it? He didn't want to take a test, turns out. But that's neither here nor there. But how are we teaching our young people how to have better emotional literacy around what they need in their day-to-day life and helping them what we like to call live their soft life?
I have a 3-year-old, and she has a lot of big feelings, and I try to intentionally cultivate a space for her to feel her feelings and name her feelings.
Love that.
And what's most interesting as a parent is watching my mother's response to that. She's just so confused by it.
Sure.
She's like, this is bizarre. You know, talking to a toddler in this way, allowing the emotions of falling out and everything in this way. And so, you know, although she is genuinely confused, I also think it's like a moment of reflection.
Sure.
For our elders to see a different way. And I remember working with someone in therapy who said, you know, I can't wait to see what this present generation of Black women who are leaning into the soft life and leaning into gentle parenting, the children that they produce, the healing from trauma that they produce. And so I think it's just like a really exciting moment that this time is intentionally trying to create a shift in how we approach our feelings and manage them in a different way.
Wow.
I took a diving class a while ago, and one of the things that they teach you when you're in distress is to stop, breathe, think, and then respond. And that is what I try to teach my children and whomever's willing to listen, because that to me takes me from chaos to clarity.
Sure.
What am I trying to do? Why I stop first, breathe, think, and that helps me to respond to things instead of reacting. Reacting is chaotic. Responding means that I've thought through and there's some clarity to what it is I'm trying to get across.
Wow. Nidra?
I parented, I have daughters who are 26 and 30, and we went through the emotional learning together, and it was a very interesting time. I guess one of the hardest things that I found in my life was having a family, raising kids that were really very bright, and also a lot of emotional dysregulation. And so I always thought a therapist is like senior mommies. It's like, okay, I need somebody to help me with this 3-year-old that won't go to bed at night and is reading at 3 a.m. in the morning and wants me to get up and play with her because she wants to have fun. And so having gone through their childhood of being able to kind of coach them through the feelings. And what I found was that in order to be the mom they needed to be, I needed to change who I was so I could be that better parent. And that has allowed me, I believe, to be that better person. So you do that active listening, you try to figure out what's going on, and you can do the coaching without getting emotionally entangled in all the other stuff. So it's great to see them as young women managing themselves.
Yeah, and working with young people in my industry, what I found is they are very much so aware of their emotions or how things are impacting them emotionally. What I've been trying to teach them is accountability, but then also now the empathy side of it is now how are your actions, because you're responding based on your emotions and telling everyone you've made me upset. Is your behavior now impacting the individual you're communicating with? And now can you understand? And I think that's also a part of emotional intelligence. It's not just how it's impacting you, but also how are you impacting others? And so that's been the big piece that I've seen both with my high schooler and also with the folks that I work with, because they think, because I'm feeling away, I get to come in McDonald's and start a physical altercation, which has happened recently, because I'm upset. And that's not the answer. And so definitely that accountability and empathy as well, that awareness.
Dee, look your answers.
For me, it's just not passing down what our experiences were. So at the top of this conversation, you were sort of like, how did we get here? And when I think about that, it's just how do I model vulnerability to a young person? What does that look like? So showing them that being vulnerable is okay. It's okay to say that you're not okay. I work at an organization that's known throughout the Chicagoland area for behavioral health care, and nothing pleases me more than to look into the eyes of people that look like me and tell them it's okay to say that you're not okay, and if you need help, I know where you can get help from people that look like you. And it's like, really? Tell me more. And so just not passing down the things historically that perpetuated the reasons why there was so much stigma around therapy, or just saying that I'm not okay, or praying and thinking that was, now I believe in prayer, don't get me wrong, but sometimes that is not the one and only answer. There are people that are professionals that can also help us. So I strongly believe in just not passing down sort of this generational trauma.
Right. Many of us around the table are people of faith, and that's something that's super interesting that we have not talked about a ton around the table, is just how religious culture impacts our ability to seek help. I mean, I can remember being a young person and being in the church, and the prayer was the answer to everything, which prayer is an answer to a whole lot of things in my life, but also it's prayer and therapy that allows you to fully become, what you need to become. Prayer and community, right? The Bible doesn't talk about kind of being amongst yourself. It talks about building and gathering in community. So what does that look like? How do you undergird your faith on your mental health journey while also balancing out, kind of the truths that you know with whatever faith you believe, whatever you hold true to yourself, but also what you're dealing with in that current moment? I've heard that from a lot of African American people, that their answer is church, which again is the answer, but it's not the holistic piece of the answer.
Well, the Bible tells us to seek wisdom. And so I think, and there's also, there's data associated with psychological breaks of individuals in the church, and that's a whole other deep story. But we are called to seek wisdom. We're also called to care for our neighbor. And so all of the things that we've talked about today is very spiritual. Sure. And it is acting in obedience. When your brother is crying, it is your job to be there and to support him. And there's a time to cry and a time to laugh. And all of those things, I think, are therapeutic. And I think that there is this stigma in the church, in the Black church, associated with any type of flaws, quite frankly. And I think that lately we've been a lot more comfortable having those conversations. But I think that being able to be transparent, which we've already shared, and be able to know that there's grace for you, and no matter what space that you're operating in, has definitely been the path for me and those around me.
In recent years, I've seen more of our faith leaders inviting mental health professionals into the space. I've had the privilege of, being a part of either workshops or retreats or, whatever it is in the church. And I think that's so powerful to come from the leader to say, this is your spiritual space. This is a space where, the Bible and the community and et cetera will give you guidance on how to deal with the suffering that you might be confronting. And also, this is another resource. And we must kind of work in tandem to address particularly the more serious mental health conditions like the depression and anxiety and trauma. And so I think that messaging from the top really plays a role in kind of dismantling the stigma, dismantling these messages that we've heard for so long of praying it away, or those feelings of shame when you see others saying it's okay to do both. Yep.
I would just add to that, it's really layered. I grew up in a very Catholic household. My mother was, I often, practically a nun. I mean, really, church every week. My way of being rewarded was I got to clean the convent. And so very much involved in the church. But I also am a part of the LGBTQ plus community, and that was something that was not talked about. Yet I have two brothers who are also, and So we were taken care of, we were loved. I didn't actually come out until I was in my mid-20s. And for me, I've had to take those messages and really figure out what was for me and what was not. Because everything that's in the Bible, of course, is not really necessarily inspired by God. I mean, this idea of, it's okay to beat your wife and all those kinds of messages which are not true. And so I think you really have to look at it for yourself and figure out where you can go. I mean, looking for a church that is inclusive and affirming and is not going to have a minister at the front, talking about the fact that you're going to go to hell. Because I know for a fact, if all the black gay men left the black church, we wouldn't be any choirs, we wouldn't have lots of things going on. That's just the reality of it.
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation today, religion in and of itself, but my relationship with God is not predicated on my relationship with my pastor or my church. That is a personal relationship that I have with God. My church, my pastor also help to supplement that, but I think what we have learned about a lot of religious things is really how controlling it is mentally. And we've learned a lot. And what we really know today is that a lot of religions really want the same thing. But we've been taught over time how to segregate ourselves based off of what we thought somebody else's beliefs were. And so it's played a very interesting role in our lives. And I would love to hear Tori's perspective on this. My children did go to church, and today they don't. Now they will, I believe that they should. I think that there's still things, and I should probably be a better example of that, that they should. There's still a lot to gain from being a part of a church community, but they don't trust that the church necessarily always does things in their best interest, and so they are strong believers in their relationship being with God and not based off of anybody else supplementing.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I don't belong to a church, but I went to a Jesuit high school, and one of the main philosophies was be a man or a woman for others. And the way that I practice my spirituality and my relationship with God is consistently asking myself, how am I being a woman for others? And I also think about how testimonies within a church are celebrated. We love it when people come to the pulpit and they're like, here's what I've been going through and here's how God has shown up for me. But when that happens in a more secular sense, and it's just you're having a conversation with someone and they're like, girl, let me just tell you how often are we celebrating the fact that you're telling me this and you are being vulnerable instead of being like, ooh, that was a lot. Okay, let's pivot. So I think that having this kind of perspective of what is spirituality to me and how do I see it showing up in my day-to-day, it's allowed me to have a wonderful, much more vast relationship with God than I have been able to in a church setting.
Sure. And I am one of those people who happen to be fortunate. Moving back home to Chicago was one of the greatest gifts I've ever received, and that was part of the finding community within my church family. And so I know everyone's experience and journey with that's different, but I think the point is making sure, we all find community. With our last 2 minutes, I'd be curious to know for our listeners, if we were to go around the table, and we have a doctor among us, maybe we'll start with you, Dr. Inger. What is one practice or one mindset shift or one wellness practice we will want our listeners to take away with them today?
Slow down, pay attention, rest.
I would say to reach out when you need help, to be okay reaching out and to say, I need help. Ask for it.
That's awesome.
Meditation is really important, just to be center yourself and just to be. Allow yourself to be and to stop.
That you can't be everything to everyone, and that is okay.
I agree with everything that was said at the table, especially everything said about faith. But he is the mother to the motherless, the father to the fatherless, the friend to my lonely places. And so that will always be my center. And so whether that's journaling there, the music that you listen to, music is very powerful. That's my center, and that's where I go to seek refuge.
That's awesome.
I would say to truly understand and hear someone else's story, sometimes you have to share your own.
That's awesome.
I would say I have to work on keeping my own cup full. in whatever ways that happens, by not letting somebody take from it, by allowing people to add to it even when I don't think I need it, but I really have to focus on keeping my own cup full.
That's awesome. And then I guess my advice would be to always seek and find community. Being around the table with you guys for this hour today, of course, has been medicine for me and a reminder to continue to pursue my own wellness. So thank you guys so much for imparting your wisdom and sharing with our viewers today.
I'm Curtis Tarvin, inviting you to tune into the next Brothers Talking, when the brothers and I talk about colorism, texturism, and the proximity to whiteness.
Just because I'm using standard, proper English, I'm perceived as white, I don't accept that.
Join the conversation Tuesday at 7 p.m. on CAN-TV, cable channel 19, or stream online at cantv.org or on the CAN-TV Plus app. Elevated conversation and storytelling. Experience the power of community television.
They say television is about sitting back. We say it's about stepping up. Your block has stories worth telling. Your neighbors have voices worth hearing. Chicago has a heartbeat worth sharing. Stop watching their world. Start showing yours. It's time to tune in and be seen. CAN-TV, always here, always yours. Experience the power of community television.
What we've heard over the past hour is that strength isn't just about endurance, it's about awareness. It's about knowing when to rest, when to reach out, and when to admit that carrying it all is no longer serving us. The sisters reminded us that mental health is health, not a luxury, not a trend, but a foundation we all need. In emotional literacy, learning to name what we feel is how we start to heal what's been unnamed for far too long. To every Black woman watching, your feelings are valid, your peace is so sacred, and your healing matters to all of us. And to everyone else, friends, partners, colleagues, part of care is creating the kind of space where honesty can actually breathe. Let's keep this conversation going at our tables, in our workplace, in our communities, because the more fluent we become in our emotions, the closer we get to the wholeness we all deserve. That's our time this month. Thank you for making space for CAN-TV and Sisters Talking in your day. I'm Watisse Gabbings. Until we meet again, protect your peace and remember that there is no shame in struggling. There is strength in seeking help.